Howdy, folks! Happy Tuesday. We probably are going to have a guest today. We're waiting for him to come in. But while we're waiting, Russ will start us off with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So I want to just talk about how the NFL is pretty bizarre in their practices. You know, Miami Dolphins have a pretty good year. They fire their coach. The Jets have a terrible year. The 32nd ranked defense, so you can't do any worse. They keep their defensive coordinator. It's like you can't even – there's not even an argument where you could say they look better. Look, they look good for 2.5 quarters against the Bills, but then they collapsed, the offensive line too.
And I think it was more the Bills being –
There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
No question. And so it's like, how do you go to your boss, assuming your boss cares, and I'm not sure the Jets does, but how do you go to your boss and say, well, we were 32nd this year, but I saw progress. How do you do that?
I don't know. And the one firing that puzzled me in the NFL was Flores in Miami. He had 2 years. I mean, he was dealing with the fact that they drafted a quarterback that nobody thinks that they're going to have next year. I mean, a lot of people think they're going to end up trading Tua or going after Deshaun Watson or getting it on Rodgers or whoever. So he was able, and their defense was good, and I don't think he made any Adam Gase type of bang against your head moves, and he was really good against New England, against his former team. And I think they won regularly against the Jets, the only team they didn't beat in the division. I think they lost 5 of 6 games against Buffalo over the last.
Yeah, they won, like Funky says, 8 of their last 9.
Yeah.
Whereas the Jets, they didn't even beat a divisional opponent this year. So it's like, what are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, the Nagy firing in Chicago.
No, but that makes sense.
That was deserved. The Vic Fangio firing in Denver. Okay,
that's fine. He's a nondescript coach anyhow.
Yeah. Now, who was it? Did Minnesota fire their coach?
I don't know.
Was that the only 3? I mean, the one that everybody's having a stroke over is the Giants not firing Joe Judge.
But they fired.
Gettleman retired.
Retired.
Honestly, no fan base deserves to suck more than the New York Giants.
Yeah, Mike Zimmer got fired from the Vikings.
Okay, there you go. And Spielman too. So I think that's it. I think it's 4.
But I think they probably told Gettleman, you're done. So if you want to retire, we won't fire you.
Well, it's been rumored that he was going to retire for 6 weeks. But they haven't fired Judge. I know a lot of the media are crying for them to fire him. They don't want the reputation of firing a coach after 2 years, but honestly, they're a train wreck. And like I said, no organization deserves to suck longer more than the Giants after the Super Bowls that they won against Denver and the Bills.
Yeah, sure. No, I get that. I don't have anything against the Giants, but I understand why you would. Yeah. That makes sense. But here's what I would say though. What I don't like is from the New York media kind of saying well, at least the Jets have a plan. They're doing better. They're not the Giants. And it's that doesn't mean the Jets are doing well either.
No,
they're not the Giants.
The Jets' best friend this year was the fact that the Giants sucked more.
Yeah.
And that Saleh is at least good with the media. And, they saw some –
I still have questions about him as a coach.
Right, that they saw some progress out of Wilson at the end of the year. I mean, honestly, I felt sorry for the kid against Buffalo. He got sacked 8 times. I'm like, could you get this kid an offensive line before he gets killed?
Right, so let's talk about the biggest Bubameister, though, that's going around right now, especially in this neck of the woods, where people feel like there's – the Eagles, we know the Buccaneers are good and they're not what they used to be. And we know Tom Brady has won all these Super Bowls, but he's old and he's not what he used to be, even though he threw 5 touchdowns last week, right? And so we think we could beat the Buccaneers at home. And I'm thinking, you barely beat any good teams. You lost to the Giants. You lost a lot of bad games. And I don't know where this confidence is coming from. And let's just go down the list. My feeling is, the only way you beat Tom Brady is you sack him 7 or 8 times, you injure him, or there's a miraculous play. Eagles, miraculous play. Giants, miraculous play. I don't think the Jets did injure Brady, but I do think they had him sacked like 5 or 6 times when Sanchez won.
And
one of his rare playoff losses.
And the Giants put tons of pressure on him in the 2 Super Bowl losses. So he benefited from a fantastic play when was it Malcolm Butler made that interception in the one game. But I mean, I honestly I don't think the Eagles have much of a chance against Brady. We'll talk about
bet on it. If there's anything I can do for you as a friend or someone who's broadcasting for you, do not bet that game.
Do not bet the Eagles. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I wouldn't bet either, but I wouldn't bet the Eagles. That's for sure.
Right. And Timothy in the chat said, "Do you think anybody will hire Brian Dable, who's the Bills' offensive coordinator, as a coach?" I think he's going to be in the mix, but there's only 4 openings.
But so he'll get an interview.
He'll be in the interview. So will their defensive coordinator. There's a lot of people who are going to get interviewed. I did not watch it, but after watching a couple episodes of NCIS last night, I was flipping through the channels and I caught the 4th quarter of the Alabama-Georgia game.
I didn't watch any of it.
Right. There is no sporting event that I care less about than college football. But when I saw it was a tight game, as we bring Joe Yurden onto the show. Hey, Joe, we're live.
Hi there.
Joe, I was saying to Russ, like I purposely, because I don't really care about college football that much, I purposely avoided the Alabama-Georgia game. I was watching something until like about 11:15, and then I'm flipping around and it's on, and it's a tight game. And as soon as I saw that it was a tight game, I'm like, go Georgia. I hate Alabama with a passion. And from what I've heard, and this is typical Alabama. And the favoritism that I think they get. I saw it on ESPN this morning. In the first quarter, one of the first plays of the game, a Georgia defensive lineman hits the Alabama quarterback. He fumbles the ball. It's picked up. It goes for a touchdown. They review it. They say his arm was in motion, and they called it no touchdown. 4th quarter, same play, same type of play. Defensive end is going after the Georgia quarterback. He throws the ball. It comes out. They give it to Alabama. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like the teams like this that they get those calls. Now, thankfully, Georgia came back and won. And loved the sour look on Nick Saban's face. You have to just live with $15 million a year. Sorry.
I got a bit of a different perspective on it because I've gotten a bit of a view of UGA fans over the years, especially the football fans. It doesn't really happen so much with basketball or anything else, but their football fans are
rabid,
beyond the pale. They're imagine Bama fans, but without all the titles. I think that's pretty much what you can chalk up UGA fans to be. I mean, hey, good for them. First time in 40 years, whatever. That's always fun to break a streak. I didn't like hearing a lot about the Atlanta Braves after the fact, though. Get out of the Braves talk. Please.
I'm glad I didn't watch. That wouldn't happen.
I'm sure Herschel Walker was walking around that arena trying to drum up support for Senate this year. But
it makes a lot of sense to do that in Indiana.
That's
where he's campaigning.
With the boosters, he's looking for some cash.
Yeah, right. I don't. Yeah, whatever.
No. I think it was the first national championship since Herschel Walker. I think it was 81 or 82. But anyway, Okay. All right, let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, January 11th. Russ, I'm sorry.
Mike, why don't you just use a wristband?
Tuesday, January 11th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And as I said, we are pleased to welcome Joe Yurden on the show.
You look as confused as the Bills' offense did against the Jets.
Thanks. Thank you. Joe, that's the last crack you can get because his team is in dormancy until September, while the Bills have another week until they lose to New England.
Although I should say that
Jets have been in dormancy for a few years.
Yeah, I didn't say this on the pre-show, but I was a big Don Maynor fan. So I was sad to see him pass away. I met him once. Super nice guy. He didn't even like the fact that I was showering him with accolades, but he was the first receiver in the NFL to get 10,000 yards. A pretty amazing feat. So anyhow,
yes, great player. Okay, let's start with this. Ken Holland, the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, held court today with the Edmonton media. And in my mind, Joe, I don't know if you saw it, said absolutely nothing because, the media is rabid in Edmonton right now. The fans are equally as rabid. They have lost 11 of their last 13. Ken Holland, I don't know how many times. I wish I had $1 for every time he said, well, we were first overall in December. He said that 4 or 5 times.
Yikes.
And I'm like, okay, nobody cares that you were first overall in December. They care where you are now, and your team is in chaos. But he basically said, our solutions are internal. He's not going to fire the coach, and he's not going to make any trades, at least not right now. He's not going to trade his first round pick. I mean, Joe, what was the purpose of the press conference? I don't know. He said he didn't break any news. He didn't say anything.
Sometimes you need to have a press conference like that to take the temperature down a little bit. Being familiar with how things have gone in Buffalo the last 10 years, the number of times that we've had to have either Jason Botterill or Tim Murray have to come out and discuss things, in the midst of a giant losing streak. Even Kevin Adams had to do it last year while they were in the process of losing 18 in a row. So, I mean, you have to do it sometimes because when the fans are screaming and like somebody's got to talk about this, the coach is only going to say so much. And Dave Tippett's he's not a verbose guy. He's not going to tell you a lot unless he's really pissed. But in this case, you got to say something. I think everybody was anticipating there to be a firing today or a signing or a trade or something with Holland speaking, but that's not how Ken Holland rolls with stuff. Like that's not the way he really operates. So, I mean, it's really frustrating for the fans, but I mean, I'm kind of the mind that the Oilers having this kind of lack of success isn't all that surprising because they've got 2 guys and they got nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, they have some things, but I get what you're saying. The sense of that is still true. He did talk about second chance as a reclamation project. So clearly,
I'll bring that up in a second because I was going to lead into that. But
yeah, so clearly that's a thing where he was warming everybody up for that one. I do think the one thing he did that was good was it does seem like Ken Holland may be in the game longer than we think, and he's not going to trade the house and try and ruin the future because he knows that assets aren't as great as they used to be in that organization, and they do kind of need some of their youth to fill the coffers there with different positions. So I think in the end, that was a good thing.
Well, this is the thing, because I know Elliot Friedman talked about this a few weeks back. When they were on a roll, when they were doing well, he said, if they needed a goaltender or a defenseman or whatever, they would be open to trading their first round pick. Now, in the last week, Friedman is getting, taking the temperature of the Oilers, and trading their first is off the table right now. Well, why? Because their pick is probably in the teens right now. And if they finish out of the playoffs, it's going to be in the top 12 or 13. So of course it's off the table. But Joe, when I look at this team, and I mean, I agree. I've been saying forever that it's, you've got that core group that, I think they paid way too much for Darnell Nurse, but I think he's a good defenseman. I don't think their defense is very good. They bring in an old Duncan Keith. I think Bouchard is a good young defenseman. And you spend $5.5 million on Zach Hyman, and I love Zach Hyman. He's a great player, but that's not where you needed to spend the $5.5 million. You needed to spend that on a goaltender. And all he did during this press conference was say, "Well, Koski and Mike Smith have been good at times." I mean, nobody wants to hear that. They suck. They're terrible.
Yeah. No, I will say I'll give Koskinen a little bit of a break. I like that he kind of sounded off to a Finnish reporter saying, I've lost 7 in a row or whatever it is, but they've lost 6 in a row and they've scored 7 goals for me in those those games. Like, yeah, not much you can do about that if the team's not scoring for you. But they took a big gamble and bringing Smith back because Smith did have a good season last year, and I understand bringing him back, but to bring him back as your number one. What you're getting yourself into. Smith has, he'll have injury issues during the season, and I don't know if you're believing that Koskinen is your guy that can help supplant that issue as the season goes on. I mean, I guess you have to believe into it because of his contract. But I mean, geez, I don't know how you look at that setup and say, yeah, no, we're set there. I don't see how that works because you have so many depth issues throughout the entire rest of the lineup. I mean, yeah, getting Hyman's a nice signing, but I mean, you're not running with a whole lot from lines 2 through 4, and even further back with that, with their depth and their AHL depth. But
Yeah.
they've been in a bad spot for a while. They look like they're going to stay in a bad spot unless they make a trade that could be regrettable later on. But
yeah,
they're in a very, very difficult position because I think everybody's just kind of waiting for when, not if so much, but like when Connor McDavid's going to say like, all right, that's enough. I got to get out of here.
Now,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely coming, unless they start winning. But I just looked over their system again, and honestly, they have one potential A prospect in Broberg, and I don't necessarily call him an A because I don't think he's a great defenseman.
He's already up, Russ. So it's like they're not even.
I know, but he's played 8 games, so we're saying there's him. Holloway's missing a year here, and I like Dylan Holloway, but missing a year for him, that could be really bad. So I have to reevaluate him when he's back and see what he looks like, because a lost year is not going to look great. Luka Musenberger actually was pretty good in the little spot of the World Juniors that we saw. Xavier Bourgault's pretty good. Tulio's pretty good. Lavoie's pretty good. But that's it. Everything that is an A or a B, other than, well, if you want to count Broberg is up. I don't know if he's staying up. Is up. And that's the problem that's why they can't trade a 1. They can't do it.
Now, as Russ said, Holland mentioned, he's open for players with giving players second chances. And of course that led into the name Evander Kane. And, Joe, Evander Kane is the gift that keeps on giving, because we know from covering him in Buffalo and other people covering him in Atlanta and Winnipeg and San Jose, it's always a sort of a clown show with Evander Kane. And we know about the termination of his contract and the grievance. But now, I think it was Pierre LeBrun reported that it was like a dozen teams, or a large number of teams that are interested in him. Gord Miller reported this morning that he believes that Kane will have a contract with somebody by the end of the year. It sounds like, from what LeBrun said, he's open to basically a 1-year league minimum deal, like Zach Bogosian took with Tampa, just to get back in the league and just to play with a contender. And that's why I want to start with this. Edmonton's not a contender right now. I mean, I know that the attractive quality of potentially playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, it might be something that excites them, but they're not a contender. Not right now. And I don't think, unless they make major changes, ever. So to me, I don't know if the Edmonton Evander Kane thing is realistic.
Yeah, it strikes me as desperation on Edmonton's side. That I think that's pretty clear. That's an easy route to get some help, because even though Evander might not be the biggest fan of being in Edmonton in the depth of winter, but another chance and an opportunity to play next to McDavid or Draisaitl or both would certainly be very attractive for him, because he'll be on the hunt for another multi-year deal after this year. But as far as you looking around the league and saying who's a contender, who's not, Edmonton is not one. The one that I think would be interesting to him is Vegas. And I think that's because with Pacioretty being out for an extended amount of time, the fact that they could bring him in cheap, that he's got a friend in Jack Eichel there and Robin Lehner.
Is he a friend in Jack Eichel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're good pals.
Yes.
I don't know if you're Jack Eichel, you're saying like, yeah, bring him on in here. He'll help things out here. I don't know if you're leaning on his word yet.
The only thing I'm worried about, Joe, is that he's going to be staying in the same penthouse that he fanned out that money back in the day, and he doesn't have that money anymore. So what is he going to fan out? The
The interesting thing is, look, Edmonton's still in the race. We can't say they're not in the race because the Kings are only 3 points ahead of them. Calgary is only
but they're
2
not
points ahead of them. So they're in the race.
They're in the race for the playoffs, but they're not a cup.
No, I get it. But again, they're in the race for the playoffs. So we have to say that. I don't think Kane would go there first. No. I think the Rangers will still have interest. I think Pittsburgh will have interest. I think even Minnesota will have interest.
I think Tampa will have interest. I think Toronto
will have interest.
I think and the thing is, like I said yesterday, you can put the pieces together. Nobody will really know except maybe guys like Friedman or LeBron, or they'll find out before anybody else does. But like I was making the connections yesterday, Daniel Milstein, who is Kane's agent, does a lot of business with the Leafs. He's buddies with Wayne Simmons, who they partnered together for this Hockey Diversity Alliance. He had the opportunity to play with Matthews or Tavares, and the Leafs desperately need help on the left side. The only good left winger that they've had consistently right now, Russ, is your friend Michael Bunting. So, I mean, you
can't replace him, so why would they even look at Kane?
Well, he's one guy, Russ. He can't play on both.
What do you mean he's one guy? He's
one guy. He can play on one line. He can't clone himself and play on two. So
is he even going to get 40 points, Mike?
Yes, he is.
He is? He's going to get 40?
Yes.
Mark it down. Can we mark that down? Can everyone in the audience mark that down?
Write that one down.
That's an M5. Mike 5, yes. No, right. But I mean, Joe, the thing that we have to worry about is there's all this interest in him, and I know there's interest because they can get him at a league minimum deal, but we've been exposed to the Evander Kane experience. We remember him scoring, I think it was 2 goals or a hat trick in a game on a Saturday afternoon, and then him going to the NBA All-Star game and missing practice.
Yeah. It's just took a private chopper to Toronto, across the lake to Toronto, and stayed a little bit late, and overslept for practice the next morning, and put all of his exploits on Snapchat in a Snapchat story, which I was. Well, yeah, and the fun part was sitting at Sabres practice and watching that video on my phone, and everybody's like, "Where's Evander?" And I just show it to everybody. I go, "He's where he was. He's where he was.
He's in a copter."
He's got the bottle of Louis 13 and he's pouring out shots for everybody. But hey, good for him. I mean, it's $3,500 a bottle. It's good stuff. But
someday that won't be good for him. But
right. Well, it's probably not good for him now. But But I will say on him though, if you don't have the proper vet room and a strong room, and I mean a place with a presence where they're the boss.
Yeah,
I don't know that Evander's the right guy to be bringing in there because he has a very dominating personality, and you can take that to mean negative things, take it to mean whatever you want. But he's a commanding presence, and he has a big influence on younger dudes because younger dudes see the flashy lifestyle, they see all that stuff, and they're like, "Wow, that's cool."
And that's why Vegas sends like shot. I
think Vegas could be a disaster. I think Toronto could be a disaster.
No, Toronto is okay. This is the thing, Russ. I think all the teams that we mentioned, except maybe Minnesota, they don't really have a veteran core, a strong veteran core group. They have a lot of young guys. I think every one of those teams, Tampa, Toronto, Pittsburgh, Vegas, they all have a veteran core group that I think could withstand what Kane does. It's just a question of, with Toronto, Joe and I have been up in Toronto in terms of the media. They handle the media very well. There have been players there that, they spoon feed them to the media. It's just, if you're going to do something extracurricular, it's going to get out in Toronto.
There will be questions about Kane to Sheldon Keefe every day if he's in Toronto. Every day.
There's questions, but Russ, there's questions.
That wouldn't happen in every market.
There's questions about Mitch Marner every day.
Okay, but at least Mitch Marner, I want those questions because he's one of my core guys. I don't want questions every day for a guy that I brought in for 2 months.
Well,
if the questions around Marner don't center around him being at the club, being spotted at the club late at night, or this, that, or the other thing,
And that's why, okay, if Kane goes anywhere, it's going to be you're going to have to be cleaner than Caesar's wife, because if you're not, they're just going to terminate your contract again. And it's like, you have to sing for your supper right now. And if he doesn't want to do that, then he's not going to get a job. But I think, there will be teams out there. We know that every team is open to a reclamation project as long as they're cheap and there's no risk. So,
I will say Russ mentioned Pittsburgh, and when the Sabres traded him, a few years back, Pittsburgh, and talking with Evander when that was going on, and I said, who have you heard that's interested? And he's like, well, my agent told me Pittsburgh was one of the teams, and I was like, well, that's a fascinating place for him to go.
They'll still be interested now for sure.
Yeah, it's a very curious spot, but with Crosby there, with Letang, with all those guys in place, that's as good a place as any for Evander to come in there and just be like, all right, I'm just here to play. I'm just here to do my job.
Brian Burke is a general manager who has always taken second chances on players.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, though, Kane in Pittsburgh, I don't know if you remember his, Kane's past, but when he fought Matt Cook years ago while he was still with Atlanta. Fans in Pittsburgh have never treated Evander Kane very well at all. So I would be Evander never really thought very highly of Pittsburgh.
But they didn't treat Matt Cook very well at the end either. Well, I don't think he was their favorite guy after a while either. So
that was for slightly different reasons.
He definitely wasn't Erik Karlsson's favorite player. I can say that.
Yeah.
Now
I don't even miss Matt Cook. Does anybody here miss Matt Cook?
No, not at all. Now, some off the ice news from the Detroit Red Wings, and we'll ask Kevin about this tomorrow. Nicklas Lidstrom was announced as the VP of hockey operations. Russ, this doesn't sound like an ambassador's job. This sounds like he's going to be involved in hockey decisions alongside Yzerman and Pat Verbeek and the number of other people they have there.
Nobody gets to just show up at the office in Detroit just because you know Yzerman. You don't. And so if Lidstrom's going to go there, he's going there to work. Like Yzerman doesn't do that. I've seen him and his crew, guys like Draper, actually out there scouting, working. They have to work. And so Lidstrom was always that guy where you could make an argument they were better athletes than him in the league, but he was really smart. He knew exactly what to do at the position, and he knew exactly when to do it. And I do feel like when you spoke to him, and we've all interviewed him, he was always a very insightful guy. The hockey IQ was kind of off the charts. He was never too high or too low. He was that guy that was just deadpan in the middle all the time, never too excited, never too mad. And that's good as a coach for guys like Seider, for the rest of that defense crew, for even younger forwards like Raymond, who's already good defensively. He probably could chip in and help them a little bit even more. Just for that whole team, it's a big deal bringing in a big name like Nick Lidstrom.
Joe.
Yeah, and apparently Lidstrom's going to be starting off this position by doing his job from Sweden, which, hey, listen, if the Red Wings don't have an office in Stockholm by now, I don't know what they're doing. They should have a wing of the team Hall of Fame there by now. But I can never say enough positive things about Nick Lidstrom. This is where the fanboy in me comes out, being a Wings fan, because Lidstrom is just one, and I've, like you guys, I've gotten to interview him a couple of times, and just an unbelievable person, just an incredible person, and the aura that he carries is something that really resonates still with even the younger guys in the league now. I remember Dahlin when he got to meet Lidstrom. I think it was his rookie season when they went to Detroit, and Dahlin, the photo of Dahlin with Lidstrom, Dahlin is just like eyes popping out of his head. Holy crap, I'm meeting my idol. Right. This is amazing. Like that kind of response to guys. I mean, we don't really see that happen now. Guys in the league now are probably past the Gretzky age. I mean, Ovechkin, when he was getting interviewed by Gretzky on TNT, that first game, like that was, one of those first TNT games. Like that was really cool to see. Just because it was deal, yeah, because it's Ovi like being like, wow, holy crap, Gretzky, like, this is amazing. But there aren't a lot of guys left around the league that either grew up watching him or even had a chance to play against him.
Yeah, I don't know if Kaprizov would care about Gretzky, and it's not anything against him, but I don't think he would.
No, he'd probably care about Ovechkin because he's
right. Yeah, absolutely. But like that, but like the guys that those players look up to, they're still in the league. Like they're not outside of the influence. They're competing against them. Lidstrom's the one guy where he's gotten beyond playing. He played for a long time. Like let's face it, he played for a very long time. And the fact that you've got guys coming through, I'm pretty sure Lucas Raymond got a chance to watch him play as like a 5-year-old or something like that. So, like those guys all know him. They all respect him. They all love him.
Yep.
And I mean, he won him an Olympic gold in 06. So, he's a big deal, man.
Well, he was okay. He was an okay player.
Oh,
I winked on that.
He wasn't happy.
Yeah, he was all right.
The funny thing, and Joe, you know this because you're at the draft combine, and Russ and I are at the draft combine. When we ask these players like who they idolize somebody who's 22 or 23. Like I'm sure if you go to the combine, if the combine is there this June, we'll ask a defenseman who their idol is, and they'll say Cale Makar, who's 20.
Yeah, listen, I'm hearing Austin Matthews now for forwards.
I know,
young players, like it's crazy.
Well, no, man, Matthew Nyes, the Leafs' second-round pick. Yeah. He's from the Arizona area. His family, I think, was from Slovakia, but they moved to Arizona, and he practiced or skated with Matthews when he was like 15 or 16 years old. His idol is Austin Matthews.
Yeah, and he's only one of them. I've heard from a few others. I heard from him, but I heard from a few others. And yeah, you're right. I mean, that is the way it goes. But it's a positive for Detroit. I mean, they're getting better. They're going to have another good pick this year. That stuff's not going to last forever. So the player development part of this is where Lidstrom's going to come in.
Now, I just can't wait for Moritz Seider to pick Lidstrom's brain because Seider's already a very impressive player. Yeah. And if Nick's giving him tips, man.
I'm
great.
I'm just fast forwarding 4 years and thinking of Seider and Edvinsson and Costa, and I mean, this team is gonna be a juggernaut.
Like Edvinsson, he could talk to tomorrow. Like he can go to a game and talk to him right after the game now. Like that's a big deal, and he could just say, hey, we like you, we have interest in you. He'll talk to him. Yeah. He'll pick his brain, and that's, by the way, that's part of the reason for this hiring. Don't kid yourself, because Kevin told us they're very high. We're very high on him, and they want him to be in the NHL next year. And so, who better than Nick Lidstrom to kind of talk to you now and say, well, what do you feel like you have to get better at? Here's what I saw, and all of a sudden next year I'll be playing for him.
Mm-hmm. Russ, I just saw this on the Twitter ticker here. Lucas Elvenis, who was a prospect for Vegas. He was put on waivers yesterday for purpose of terminating his contract, which would lead you to believe he's a Swede, would lead you to believe he's going back to the SHL. He was claimed by Anaheim today. So
yeah, I'm going to say this about Vegas. They've lost a few prospects this way, and it's not a good look.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, it's like, okay, if they're terminating his contract, and I would assume they were terminating it because he said he was going to the SHL. Did he just pull a fast one here?
No, I don't think so. Maybe they said, listen, you're going to the AHL, and he was like, maybe I don't want to. And it's the same situation as last time.
Right. And so, I mean, by Anaheim picking him up, that means he's on their 23-man roster, and they can put, well, I don't know, not text. It can't be.
It's one thing. This is the one thing I think McCrimmon's done a bad job with. I get it. Everybody should play in the AHL if they don't make the NHL, if they're on your team. But the problem is when you've already played in a pro league, and if that guy feels like the league I played in was better than where you're sending me, you're always going to get static from that player. Like, I don't want to go. And these are the kinds of players that have had this problem now. This is at least twice that we know of, and who knows who else may have said something, that it's become a thing.
Now, sticking with Vegas, Joe, the appearance of a guy named Eichel on the ice. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about this guy. But,
I've heard.
Yeah, but he popped on the ice in Vegas today, about 2 months after having the artificial disc replacement surgery, and the speculation is that maybe in a couple weeks he will be ready to come back. And I don't know who, I think it was John Vogel that mentioned this, was that February 1st, the Buffalo Sabres visit Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's put an X on his calendar for that one?
100%. 100%. That's the date he's got circled. He wants.
I think it's a horrible idea.
I tend to agree with you there. Now, the way I disagree is that Eichel's a freak physically. Like, he's
I get that. But don't you feel like you're going to want to put him through some sort of medical testing to see how he's going to be when he has to start taking punishment. And if they're not going to do that, and they're just going to say, all right, Jack, you feel good? Okay. Neck feels good. Okay. Go out there. You don't know what he's going to be like a month later.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% on board with that.
Because there's meatheads in this league that are going to test him.
Yeah. I mean, guys are going to want to hit him all the time.
Absolutely.
The thing is, he doesn't really take big hits ever.
He hasn't before. We don't know what his elusiveness will be like now. I'd like to say he's going to be the same player, but until I see it, how could I say that?
I mean, the Zekas cross-check was unusual in terms of, most of his injuries have been, knee or high ankle sprain, not an upper body. And that was the first real serious one. So I agree. I wouldn't, if I was him, I would
make them skip that game. If I were, honestly, if I were McCrimmon, I'd be like, Jack, I appreciate what you want to do here. This is a bad idea.
But I think that's his target. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, he's going to get a game against the Sabres this year, one way or the other. If not,
but you don't want that to be the first one back. Also, in case he's not exactly great either, because then you'll have the whole Buffalo media writing, see this? See, maybe he's not going to be so good. See, the Sabres did the right thing. You don't want any of that either.
Well, why would Jack care what the Buffalo media says now?
Yeah, because everybody
never cared before.
You know that he cares. Every athlete cares. They could tell you they don't read anything. They could tell you that they don't hear anything, but they do.
Russ, he'll be doing the Buffalo media a favor because if that game is February 1st, I think it's the last game before the All-Star break. Everybody will be on a Southwest direct flight to Vegas for that game, and then they'll stay over for the All-Star game. So the Buffalo media is all on board with it.
It's a bad idea.
I don't think I believe he's going to want that game. I believe he wants
I know he's going to want it, but guess what? You're now a member of this team. You're not in charge of your medical situation. You're not.
He actually trusts the Vegas team. So
right.
We gave you the freedom to get your operation the way you wanted it. But now you're going to have to listen to some reasoning here.
Pretty sure Vegas is okay with the timing. Because this is 2 months. This is 2 months after surgery. He's on the ice. He's practicing.
Let me ask you this: did you ever feel like Vegas was going to ever try and hold him back a little bit to be safer from the minute they got him? The answer is no.
And this is on the same timetable as if if he would have been part of Team USA going to the Olympics. This is the same timetable because he would have been back before the Olympic break. And had that been the case, and the NHL players had gone to the Olympics, probably Team USA would have selected him. But that's not going to happen.
I don't know, but this time frame, they haven't shortened the time frame for him at all. Like this is right in the spot where we're talking 8 weeks.
February 1st would be 2.5 months. He's at 2 months right now.
Right, so he's 8 weeks out from surgery. This is right in line with the projections of how long they said he'd be out for. To me, they're not stepping on the gas for him.
All right, hold on. Do you think at practice he's going to skate with a contact jersey on him for a week or two?
Not for a week, at least. He's in non-contact right now. I don't mean
not for a week. I mean for a week or two before he plays, because that's what they do with normal players.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he'll absolutely practice with it when he's got the red jersey off. He'll absolutely practice with that.
I don't think a while, or just for 1 or 2. I have a feeling it's going to be for 1 or 2.
Russ, I don't think he's going down to Henderson to play AHL games.
No, he's not going to do that. I'm not expecting him to do that. But he also hasn't played in a really long time, Mike.
Oh, I know. He hasn't played since last April. So
a long time.
I agree. But
I'm just saying, most players, they would have you on without the red jersey for probably 3 or 4 practices before you could get back in there. We even hear coaches say, I got to see him for a while in practice before I make a determination on when he's going to be in there. We're not going to hear this out of Vegas. That's the only thing that bothers me. I don't.
Well, listen. That's how Vegas operates, though.
I know.
They said he's not going to talk. He's going to talk today, and he's not going to talk again until he plays. So it's a good way to keep things as quiet as humanly possible with that. But listen, he's been in North Carolina now for a month, 2 months, skating after skating around Raleigh after getting the operation. He's
sure.
He's not showing up there, 20 pounds overweight and
No,
looking like a bum. Like
it's none of that.
He's
But
fresh and ready.
But when you have to go game speed and guys are bringing down your neck and they're knocking your stick away and all those other things, these are things he's not simulating right now.
Yeah, that's why he's skating with a red jersey on against them. Like that's why he's doing it, Russ.
Okay,
he's
Joe,
getting that timing back.
Joe, hold on. So you've been in enough practices. I've been in enough practices, and so is Mike. And you guys go to more practices than I do, to be fair. Mm-hmm. When you see the guy with the red jersey on, how hard do you think they're going at it? And how much? I mean, it's always like half speed. Nobody touches them. The puck goes in the corner. They don't go near them if they're scrimmaging. It's not that realistic.
No, Russ.
He's doing non-contact drills, but he's still doing all the practices, all the systems, all that stuff. He's still like that's how you get your timing back. Then once the red shirt comes off, then you can do all the full contact stuff, and that way you're up to speed with it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Looking at some of last night's games, and I just want to look at the Eastern Conference here, because we've been talking about this, Joe, when it comes to teams like the Islanders who are way out of it, or Philadelphia. We've been talking about Philadelphia and their issues lately. So Boston beats Washington last night handily, 7-3. Matt Grzelcyk had 5 points. Boston has been rolling lately.
Wait, hold on. Matt Grzelcyk had 5 points.
Yes,
there were people telling me on this program when I was saying how good Grzelcyk can be and could be on the power play and be a point guy. Not that good. He was okay.
It wasn't me who said that.
No, I know that. It was in the chat room.
Yes.
But I'm happy to see Matt Grzelcyk do this because I did feel like he could do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think he's as talented offensively as Torrey Krug, but I think he's pretty decent. But my point was, so Boston wins last night. They have 40 points. They're in the second wild card. They have 32 games. The Islanders have 28, and they're 14 points behind the Bruins.
Yeah, it's over for the Islanders.
I break out my sign right here, baby. It's over. And I think it's over. I think it's over for Philadelphia too, because mm-hmm. Boston has 3 games in hand on them. But Joe, what my point is here, you've already gotten, we're 30, 32, 33, up to 36 games into the regular season. You've got a massive divide in that Eastern Conference, where you have this group of teams with 50 or 50 some odd points down to 40, and then the rest of the conference is 33 or below. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a race in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I don't know that there's. I think three weeks might even be pushing it, because I think we're still waiting for things to kind of fall apart for Detroit at some point. Ned being out is not going to help them out.
No.
That's a big problem for them. Columbus, I don't know how the hell Columbus is even as close as they are.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about 2 teams in a minute.
Like they're seven back of Boston, and Boston's got Boston only has 1 game in hand on them. So
right. Yeah.
So I mean, but still, you're 7 points out. Everybody gets a point now. Nowadays, I don't see how anybody really below Detroit can get a chance at knocking in on Boston or Pittsburgh or whoever else ends up in that spot, unless somebody the wheels completely fall off of somebody and they have just an absolutely disastrous second half. But I mean, East looks pretty set as far as I'm concerned, because everybody at the top is way out in front, and anybody who might think they have a shot at it, they better get really hot really fast, or else it's good night.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying for a few weeks, and so is Mike, it's 1 spot for 4 teams, but I don't even know if the Flyers even can be in that mix anymore, just to be fair. I do think with Columbus, because they have a good power play, and because they do have Laine, who has clicked with Voracek, and they have been getting decent goaltending, and they still have Werenski, and they have cap space, if Boston were to sputter a little bit and they got hot, they could make things interesting. So I do think there's a chance, and I think there's a minute one for the Devils, because they have been scoring goals. Like Jack Hughes is really looking good. They do have goaltending. And again, if Boston does go on a little lull, which they're going to, they're not a perfect team here. We know that. They might have a little bit of a chance, because those two are scoring goals. The Flyers aren't scoring goals.
It's going to all be on Blackwood with New Jersey, because now Bernier's out for the year. So so that Blackwood's going to really have to step up and play. And like Randy in the chat said, Boston's getting Rask back. They vacated the PTO. That's in preparation for him signing an NHL deal. So, but goaltending hasn't been. Swayman's played okay, and I thought Ullmark was pretty good last night. So I don't think goaltending is. It's not like he has to be the savior coming back, Joe. He just has to be close to what Tuukka Rask has been over the last few years.
Yeah, it's nice to have an insurance policy like Tuukka Rask to help things out, because I believe that Boston really expected too much too quick of Jeremy Swayman. Yeah. He got 10 games last year, and they were like, okay, you're our backup. Let's go. Like, this is your job. Like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe have him play a few more games than that. That's give him more of a look to get a taste. I get, like, sometimes you just got to strike when the iron's hot with some of these guys, but goaltending's voodoo. We do that. But when you got Tuukka coming back, man, I mean, if Ullmark slips up at all, or, I got to believe Swayman's going back to Providence, but I mean, if Ullmark slips up or gets cold, like, Tuukka's going to be right there. And if he's on top of his game, which I think we all have to expect that he's going to be at or close to that, unless, the surgery and everything, for him in the off season really ruined things. But man, oh man, I mean, that's such a bonus for Boston, because you mentioned Jersey has goaltending issues now with Bernier out. Carolina's got some serious goaltending issues now that they're signing Jack LaFontaine out of college to try to play some games for him. Anybody who puts a goalie on waivers now they might as well just pack their bags for Carolina these days.
Right. Now, okay.
One thing I did want to mention, Mike, because people were saying in the chat room, just because Hamilton was out with a broken jaw doesn't mean he's not going to play. He'll play with a cage at some point.
Yeah, but it'd probably be 3 or 4 weeks before,
But they do have 10 guys on protocol, and apparently even Blackwood's test came back inconclusive. I got to imagine they got to halt that team for a little while.
Yeah, and we saw, was it Philadelphia, Carolina was canceled?
Because of the Philadelphia side, because they were missing so many players. But here's the argument with this one, and I get it. At the time, I thought the Flyers game against the Penguins should have been postponed, but it was an ESPN game. I'm going to just leave that hanging there.
Okay.
So now they have one less or maybe 2 less players out, but probably a bunch of inconclusive tests and other things that aren't great. And so now this one gets postponed, but it's not an ESPN game. Mm-hmm. And if they would have halted it then, they probably wouldn't have whatever problem they have now, because again, I don't know how many players it is right this minute, because I think as of yesterday, it was like 4 or 5. And so, yeah, I mean, it does make you wonder why that didn't happen.
Are you saying that ESPN used their influence for us? Are you suggesting that?
I am saying it because they did have 6 players on protocol and 3 on IR back then. And now, okay, so Ristolainen just got added. I don't know what the amount is, but I'm going to say they have probably 5 out. Let's see, 4. So they have 5 or 6 out now. So, but they had more out then, but it was a nationally televised game.
Yeah. Well, hasn't this happened with some of the Canadian games though, where some of them are getting bounced because of the capacity reasons, then others are just being thrown on TV?
It's definitely. I mean, Toronto is playing one more home game the rest of January. Same thing for Montreal. They're vacating their home games because they're having no fans, and they can't afford to have no fans for those games. So you're going to have a slew of home games for. Especially for Montreal. Toronto will have, I think, 4 or 5 that they have to reschedule, and it's all going to have to be in that 3-week window during the Olympics. Or
let me ask you this though, Mike, because again, to me, they've already exceeded how many games could be in that 3-week window to make up. To me,
right?
But if it's still bad in a month, they are going to have to come up with a plan for the Canadian teams to play in the States and reverse the gate. Like, that's the only way I see it happening if it continues.
If those provincial governments don't yield, I mean, then you're right. But the thing is, I mean, right now, the assumption is that like by February they'll start to take the restrictions off. That they ride out the Omicron wave, and that you have seen things start to sort of spike and things going downward in some areas that had it first. So we'll see. Now, Veps has posted this. The thing that stands out to me here, Bednar, Colorado, they're up there in the Central. Brenda Moore's on top of the Metro, DeBoer with Vegas on top of the Pacific, and the game is in Vegas. Andrew Brunette gets it over Cassidy, over John Cooper, who's won 2 Stanley Cups, over Sheldon Keefe, an interim coach.
Yeah, I don't know.
I almost get the feeling, Joe, that the others passed on it. It's like, no, thanks.
Maybe.
Listen, could you blame him?
No,
I couldn't blame him either. I mean, we're gonna have enough players, saying like, "Nah, I'm good."
I mean, how many people?
Why can't the coaches
players from Florida are there? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Barkov, Huberdeau, and Ekblad will be there. Remember, it's the divisional setup, so it's going to be, there's going to be a limit, and I do believe that each team has to be represented. So there will be one Sabre, there will be at least one Ottawa Senator, one Montreal Canadian, which will be.
And there'll be another day to argue about this, but Igor Shesterkin is not in the All-Star game, which is just stupid. It's just stupid.
Well, they haven't announced the rosters yet, have they?
Somebody tweeted that he's not on there, so I don't know. Maybe he's not doesn't have the votes.
Oh, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not on the ballot. I haven't even looked at the All-Star ballot.
I
don't know if there is a ballot. Yeah,
I can't.
That would be weird.
I can't imagine him not being one of the 2 goalies in the Metro. I mean, maybe Jari.
The person who tweeted could be wrong, no question.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to know because it would be interesting.
Yeah.
So I mentioned the Olympics, and it was reported yesterday that Bobby Ryan has not been selected by Team USA. Now, it was assumed that he would be because he went over to Switzerland to sort of get back into not game shape, but get up to speed. And now it was reported that he's not going to be on the team. And Joe, I look at like the things that we've heard from, say, Frank Cervalli and Chris Peters. They reported a number of players that Team USA will have. And it looks like, I mean, they're taking a lot of college kids. It's going to be, and I think Canada's probably going to do that as well. They'll have their KHL guys. They'll have some guys on AHL contracts, but it's going to be mostly college guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising they're going to lean more on college guys because you want younger legs, you want more speed, you want more energy, you want all that stuff. But passing on a guy like Bobby Ryan, who's been to the Olympics before,
makes no sense.
I know.
It's I don't know. It just reeks of typical USA hockey nonsense, which is how I can put a trademark on that phrase as far as I'm concerned, because it's just, I don't, and it makes no sense because he's been to the Olympics before. He's been a huge contributor for the United States at the Olympics before. Like he's one of the guys who, internationally speaking, has always played exceptionally well for the US. So it blows my mind that they're just going to skip out on him because I don't know, listen, they played Brian Gianna back 4 years ago in 2018, and he was 40 years old. No,
30, he was like 38.
38, yeah, because I can do the math easy on that one because he's the same age I am. So he was 38, and you're just kind of like, all right, well, yeah, that makes sense. He's the one super experienced guy you could bring there. Well, this time around, you got Bobby Ryan, who's been one of the top goal scorers, in modern NHL. Like, why wouldn't you want to bring him? That blows my mind.
All right, I did get to the bottom of this. So it was the writers at NHL.com picked the All-Star rosters.
Okay.
And they don't have Shesterkin going from the Metro. They actually have Sorokin and Anderson. And it's like, okay, listen.
No.
I get that you have to have a player from every team, but this guy could win the Vezina, and you guys didn't vote for him. Now, they said he got votes. He just didn't have enough votes. But
if you're talking about the 2 best goaltenders in the division, we've talked about Jari and how well he's played. Anderson's had a great start, but Shesterkin, I mean, come on.
Let's hope the real ballot doesn't turn out this way. But if it does, it would dumbfound me. But it's dumbfounded me that it's like that way on .com, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sorokin's probably definitely going to be the Islanders guy, though. I don't know. I don't see how you can pick anybody else. But Sorokin and Shesterkin should be their goalies. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, getting back to the Olympics, and it's coincidental that you mentioned Gianta, because the Gianta of 2022 for Canada might be Eric Stahl, because apparently Eric Stahl is going to be in the mix. Now, I haven't heard Patrick Marleau's name, because that was
I have
also,
not at all.
Yeah, that was also reported, because he's been in a couple Olympic games, and that he played last year in the NHL, so you'd think he'd still be up to the speed of things. But Stahl apparently, Joe, is looking basically like Gianta, go to the Olympics and then use it as a springboard to get an NHL contract. And this is the thing. He played okay with Montreal. I thought he emptied his gas tank in the playoffs, but in Buffalo during the regular season, and with Montreal during the end of the regular season, I thought he was terrible.
Yeah, that to me is the end of a career kind of way it goes. That's you're not always going to be on your A game, night in, night out when you've played that long and you've been around that long. And listen, the situation in Buffalo is messed up. Like, I don't know how much I can really hang any bad words on him about how it went in Buffalo, because everybody suffered. Everybody played poorly. While Ralph Kruger was still coaching. I'll give him a pass there. And it's no surprise that he looked a lot better once he got to Montreal, because why wouldn't he have looked better? But I mean, he never officially retired. I think his whole plan was just to kind of like take the time off, recharge, get ready, see where things go with the season, and then play it by ear from there. If he's ready to go and he wants to play for Canada, the Olympics, I'd say bring him, because you're not going to find anybody better than him to play up the middle, unless you're grabbing one of these kids from Michigan or Minnesota or something. But
yeah, I haven't heard Kent Johnson's name at all. So
yeah, I don't know. It's weird to me. I think Mel Pearson was just recently quoted saying, hey, if they want to pick their guys to go to the Olympics, I'm urging them to go play, because you're not going to have another better opportunity than this to play the Olympics.
Russ, we'll bring that up tomorrow. I want to end it pretty soon here, because the Eichel press conference is going to start in a few minutes in Vegas. But just one note here, Tuukka Rask, if it's official, 1 year, $1 million contract with the Bruins. So after getting over $7 million on a long-term deal, he comes back at a reasonable rate, and that gives him some flexibility going forward toward the deadline. So
hopefully he's got at least one more Tuukka smash in him. I like that. It always makes me smile.
Okay. All right. Great show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Joe Yerdon, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.